On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla and EV podcast, Tesla's Q4 earnings call opens with news that is somehow both not surprising and shocking all at the same time. The Model S and Model X are being discontinued. It's the end of an era for Tesla as the company looks to redefine itself in the coming decade. I've got so much to say about this, plus more highlights and analysis from the call. Join me. What's happening, friends? I'm Ryan McCaffrey, joining you for episode 548 of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla and EV podcast, publishing on February 1st, 2026. We have already completed 1 month in the new year. Well, I want to get right to it this week, so I will open with some quick setup, and then we're going to get right into the earnings call, skipping the shareholder letter. Normally I start there. We'll come back to that a little bit later, but we want to get to the call as soon as possible this week. So first of all, I posted this week's Patreon poll a couple days earlier than usual so that I could give folks time to get their votes in before the earnings call this past Wednesday. The question was, what do you most want to hear Tesla speak about on this week's earnings call? And with about 300 votes cast before the earnings call, I took a screen grab on Tuesday night just in case anybody decided to vote after the call. It was pretty close. 33% of you voted that you wanted to hear about FSD/autopilot policy changes, which certainly makes sense in the wake of last week's news, which was not great, about autopilot being discontinued. 26% of you said you wanted to hear about FSD hardware upgrades for Hardware 3 cars. And 20% of you were hoping to hear about full self-driving unsupervised progress. Well, one of those groups got their wish on the earnings call this week. The other two did not. You'll hear which one, quote-unquote, won in just a little while. And then secondly, I hope all of you who are kindly supporting my efforts here on the podcast on my Patreon page enjoyed this week's Lightning Round mini episode, which again I put up last weekend. I wanted to get it out to you as early as possible ahead of the earnings call because the topic this week was about the 5 questions I would have asked if I had had the mic, so to speak, on the earnings call during the retail shareholder question portion of the earnings call, I should say. So check that out if you're interested. I guess now at this point you can just go back and figure out what you can hear what I would have asked that versus what actually did get asked. Thank you to all of you kindly supporting me on Patreon. I do this every single week. Every Sunday, a new episode comes out like clockwork, 52 weeks a year. If you see it in your heart to throw me a little support, I'd be super grateful. For just $5 a month, you will get an ad-free episode and early access to that ad-free episode every week. If you step up to that most popular $10 a month tier, you'll get the early access, ad-free, and all of those lightning round mini episodes. So check it out on my Patreon page found at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. And with that, let's get right into it. The Q4 2025 earnings call from Tesla. We start, as always, with CEO Elon Musk's opening statement. This one is a doozy. It's 12 minutes long, so buckle up, and here we go.
We've updated the Tesla mission to Amazing Abundance, and this is intended to send a message of optimism about the future. I think we're most likely headed to an exciting, amazing era of abundance, and I think with the advent or with the continued growth of AI and robotics, I think we actually are headed to a future of universal high income, not universal basic income, but universal high income. I mean, there's going to be a lot of change along the way, but that is what I see as the most likely outcome. So I think that it makes sense to update Tesla's mission to reflect that goal. And obviously along that way, we're going to keep improving safety, driving down the cost of goods, and getting people access to anything they need without compromise, and still making sure that the environment is great, nature is great, and people can have whatever they want, which seems like probably the best future. I'm open to other ideas, but that sounds like it sounds like if you could say what is the best future you could possibly imagine, I guess it would be that everyone can have whatever they want, including amazing medical care, but we still keep the beauty of nature and Earth. I think that's probably the best outcome, and we're seeing obviously the first steps along that way this year for Tesla. First major steps as we increase vehicle autonomy and begin to produce Optimus robots at scale. We're making very, very big investments, so this is going to be a very big CapEx year, as Vaibhav will get into. That is deliberate because we're making big investments for an epic future. So I think all these investments make a lot of sense. We'll continue to make sure that when we do spend capital, it is spent very efficiently. But it's a lot of things. Major investments in batteries and the entire supply chain for batteries. We're also going to be significant manufacturers of solar cells, and we're making massive investments in AI chips. So, but I think these all make a ton of strategic sense, and then I guess I have like one, I guess it's not exactly bad news, but it's time to basically bring the Model S and X programs to an end with an honorable discharge, because we're really moving into a future that is based on autonomy, and so if you're interested in buying a Model S and X, now would be the time to order it, because we expect to wind down S and X production in next quarter, and basically stop production of Model S and X next quarter. We'll obviously continue to support the Model S and X programs for as long as people have the vehicles, but we're going to take the Model S and X production space in our Fremont factory and convert that into an Optimus factory, which will, with the long-term goal of having 1 million units a year of Optimus robots in the current SX space in Fremont. So that is, slightly sad, but it is time to bring the SX programs to an end and shift. Really, it's part of our overall shift to an autonomous future. As my profile picture on X said for a few months there, the future is autonomous.
And I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to stop Elon right there and talk about this. And I would like to apologize up front because this might go on for a while. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if this segment takes up the bulk of this episode, but this was clearly the absolutely earthquake news of the week. This was just an absolutely seismic event. That's the term I was looking for. Now, as I said at the very top, this is both absolutely shocking, but also not at all surprising. In fact, as a few of you kindly pointed out, I actually predicted this a year early. This was one of my 2025 Tesla New Year's predictions for the episode that I do right at the beginning of every year. I make my New Year's Tesla predictions, and this was in there for 2025. And just at the beginning of this year, when I was making my 26 predictions, I went back and scored my 25 ones, and I had to bring this one up and say, well, thankfully that didn't happen, so no points awarded to myself in this imaginary game. But sure enough, this has now happened in 2026. So the not at all surprising part comes from the fact that, as we all know well by now, sales of the Model S and Model X are continuing to dwindle. They just continue to go in the wrong direction. The slight refresh they got earlier this year for last year, gosh, we're into 2026. The slight refresh they got for the 2026 model year did not meaningfully spike sales in any way. And in fact, to quantify this, from the new shareholder letter for this quarter, we know that year over year, total deliveries of the other vehicles group dropped 40%. That is incredible, and unfortunately not the good kind of incredible. Now, a lot of that is Cybertruck, which has its own sales challenges, and we're going to get to Cybertruck later, and so is Elon, so stay tuned for that. But a lot of that is S and X too. The thing is, Tesla haters out there, they would tell you that this is a clear sign, the 40% drop year over year in the other vehicles category. They would say, well, this is a clear sign the whole company's sinking. But really, it is just the more expensive vehicles. 3 and Y deliveries, which account for 97% of the company's total deliveries, were down. They were down 7% year over year. And so the total, factoring everything together, there was a 9% drop in deliveries in 2025, which, as I covered at the beginning of the year, going over those production and delivery numbers, is not great. Certainly, I'm not going to sit here and say that, Tesla is just on fire right now. Wow, this is amazing. No, 9% drop overall in deliveries isn't great, but the bulk of the dip was coming from the more expensive, the premium cars that are just a much, much lower volume. But anyway, the thing about the S and the X is, and I've talked about this, they needed a far more substantial redesign. Whether that's a complete new sheet of paper, just full redesign, new look, new everything, or at least a significant technology upgrade. I'm talking 500 miles of range, like the Lucid Air is capable of, steer-by-wire, like the Cybertruck has, 800-volt architecture, like the Cybertruck has, 500 kilowatt max charging, like the Cybertruck has, etc. The S and X needed that stuff, and I imagine that Tesla simply wasn't willing to make that investment in the Model S and Model X, which is a shame because, and I know that something that is stated in 1 year, that over time things change, right? They're not necessarily policy or practice in 1 year is not necessarily going to be still the same practice or policy years down the road because things do change. But Elon had always said for many years that S and X would always be the technology leaders at Tesla and that they would get all the good stuff first and that then that stuff would find its way down market. And that, as we all know, never happened with the S and X. Not at least the last, well, not since the Cybertruck. That's what I'm actually getting at. The Cybertruck's advancements, I named some of them just a minute ago, they never came to the Model S or Model X. The last major technology leap that S and X took over 3 and Y, quite frankly, was 2021 with new S and X, the Plaid drivetrain, the improvements to the thermal cooling system. There were a few other ones, a few other smaller things, but really for the last, you can honestly say for the past 4 now going on 5 years, 4.5, let's just call it, the S and X have pretty well stagnated in the technology department. Not that they're old and busted or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that, but they have not been pushed forward the way that Cybertruck absolutely pushed forward from an engineering perspective, from a technology perspective. S and X never followed suit. And so that's why I say that it would seem to me that without Lars Moravy, chief engineer, here to ask, it would seem to me that those cars just needed that, and Tesla wasn't willing to make what would have required a no doubt substantial investment. So the question you have to ask yourself, and you're probably already asking yourself, is, well, is the Cybertruck going to be next? Because sales for that are going in the wrong direction too, and it's been that way for some time. Well, again, I hate to tease it, but I want to stay on SNX for now, so stay tuned for more on the Cybertruck later in the call. But one of many thoughts, I'm in the process of going through all my thoughts here. I'll tell you what, I just want to pause for a second to tell you kind of how my day went yesterday. I was listening to the call and I was taking notes, and when Elon stopped and said, well, I've got kind of sad, sort of sad news, as you heard there, I was like, what is this going to be? And then when he said it, I was shocked. Like I said, even though I made a prediction about this a year ago, it still shocked me. I can't believe they've actually done it. But this was rocking me. I mean, it really was. I was thinking about it all day, and it was really bumming me out in a very, just a car way, not like in a real life, nothing happened to my friends or family members or pets or anything. So it's not like that, but it really and I got so many texts from basically all the Tesla people in my life were texting me. I got a ton of messages on Patreon and email on Instagram. Like this rocked everybody. And it to the point where I just I listened to the call, I took some initial notes, and then I went back and fleshed out my notes and just wrote down everything that was in my head that I wanted to organize into a thought, and now you're hearing that stuff. But it even got to the point where I managed to get all my initial thoughts down on paper late last night. And then I thought, well, you know what? I haven't taken Daisy out for a walk today, which I knew, because I knew I needed to focus after my day job was over for the day. I needed to focus on this earnings call, and because it's just, I've got to record this thing. And so I ended up, after I got all my notes down, I took Daisy for a walk at 10:30 at night for two reasons. One, because she deserves a walk every day. But two, I knew that I was like, you know what? I just want to clear my head on this. And so normally I would listen to music. I would wear headphones and I would listen to music while I'm walking Daisy. I didn't bring any headphones, didn't bring any music. I just was alone with my thoughts while walking the dog last night. And sure enough, more stuff popped into my head. So I took out my phone and I was dictating my notes into the phone. And yeah, it really affected me. In a almost, I guess I wasn't expecting this to hit me like this, but it absolutely did. So I want to, that aside, let me get back to what I'm saying. And I apologize if I'm a little scatterbrained here, because this is just a pretty unprecedented moment in Tesla history. I've been doing this podcast for 10 plus years now. And this is the first time that Tesla's ever discontinued a car while I've been doing this podcast. Yes, they discontinued the original Roadster, although that was a plan. That was planned to just be they had a contract with Lotus for Lotus to build them so many cars in so many years. So this is hitting different than that, because Roadster was always just a bridge to their own cars in their own factory. But anyway, getting back to this. One of the many thoughts that occurred to me is that with SNX sunsetting next quarter, the anonymous tip that I shared with you at the top of the podcast last week about the Model Y L being introduced next month and sales staff being trained on how to differentiate it from the Model X, I gotta say that tip is looking a lot stronger now. Again, I just had to, like I said, I was just honest with you guys that this was the first time that that this source had ever reached out to me, so I was clear that I couldn't take that tip to the bank, but I wanted to share it anyway. And this week, just 1 week later, that tip to me is looking stronger now, because I think with no more Model X before too long, in the next few months, Tesla will no longer have to worry about Model Y L and Model X, quote unquote, competing with each other. Like Tesla can put out a $60,000 Model Y L, and there will be a market for it. Some of those people maybe would have bought an X. Some of those people maybe just wanted a bigger, longer Y. But I do think that this does strengthen the case for the Model Y L and for that tip that I shared last week to indeed be correct. So again, we'll see. We'll see in about a month from now. Another thought that occurred to me: does this open the door for a plaid Model 3 and maybe even a plaid Model Y? And as much as I would like that to be true, my gut says probably not. Now, sure, Tesla could do it. They absolutely could do it. They could say, well, you know what, S and X are gone, but we want to expand the offer. Like Model Y L would be an expansion of the Model Y line. They could do a plaid 3 or Y. Now, would they do it in addition to the vanilla Performance 3 and Y? Probably not. It would most likely replace the Performance. But I just don't, the reason that I don't see them doing it, and I can't believe I'm about to say this. Like, I wrote this down, and I'm now looking at the words that I wrote, and I can't believe I'm about to say this. But I think you'd probably agree that by and large, Tesla doesn't want to make drivers' cars anymore. And the performance models of 3 and Y already sell the least amount compared to the standard and the premium variants of the Model 3 and the Model Y. We don't have numbers. I've always estimated just from the many, many Teslas I see in my area. So again, it's just an eyeball approximation, and it's not real data, but it seems to me like it's about 1 in 10 are Performance 3s or Performance Ys, 1 out of every 10 3s. I mean, the new Y, obviously, the Performance version only just shipped, so there are next to none of them out there yet. In fact, I only just saw my first one this past week on the road. But anyway, the thing is, a Plaid 3 and or Plaid Y would be even more expensive than the Performance 3 and Y that we have now, and would thus, by just virtue of being more money, they would sell even fewer units. And Tesla's not looking, they're still looking to sell cars, but they're looking to sell 3s and Ys, not S's and X's. So for that reason, I just don't see them making a purely high performance 3 and a Y when the focus is fully and completely on autonomy. Again, would love to be wrong here, but I don't see a Plaid 3 or Y, a tri-motor 3 or Y coming down the line anytime soon. Instead, as we know, the final high-performance car that Tesla will seemingly ever make is the new Roadster, which really is the end of the line for drivers' cars from Tesla. And I've said this before, but it's kind of poetic since the original Roadster is how the company started. So if this is how the drivers' era of Tesla ends 20 years later, 20 years after the start of it, then that's a little poetic. There's a little sweetness there, but still sad. But this also reaffirms my belief that the Roadster isn't going to last long once it does finally go into production and start getting made and delivered. I've said this before, I give it 4 years in production, tops, maybe less. That's how long the original Roadster lasted, from 2008 to 2012, or early 12 or late 2011. It's about 4 years. So I think because really there's just not going to be a huge market for a $200,000+ car. And remember, it was listed as $200,000 base price 8 years ago. I guess, 8+ years ago now. And not a lot of things have gotten cheaper in the last 8+ years, very much including cars. So that's why I say at least $200,000. There isn't a market for any $200,000 car that's going to be more than 5 to 10,000 units, especially when it's a two-seat. I know they originally unveiled it with a +2 back seat, but that seat's good. If it's even in there in the final car, it's going to be functionally useless. But there's just not going to be a market, a substantial market for a $200,000+ super high performance, like a supercar. There just isn't going to be. So that's why I say between that and the fact that Tesla clearly doesn't want to make drivers' cars anymore. They want to make autonomous transportation devices. That's why I think the Roadster will get made, but once the demand runs dry, that's going to be it. They're going to shut that down. Another thought I had about the end of particularly Model S production is that, in my opinion, is that the final Model S should go into a museum and it should not go to a customer. And I realize that maybe that's in some weird way selfish of me to say, even though it's not like I'm saying I should get it, but I would like to see it go to a museum. And I also think that the final Model S should be painted in signature red in order to just have a nice, beautiful bookend to Model S number 1, which went to then Tesla board member Steve Jurvetson. He had that car. Now, that car, VIN number 1, Steve drove it, he owned it for a while, and he has since donated it to the Peterson Auto Museum, where you can go see it, by the way. It's currently residing down in the vault, which is their fancy term for their basement. But there are a lot of cool cars down there that aren't up in the main museum display. But since I made these notes right after the evening after the earnings call there, Wednesday night, Steve actually posted to X and said that he is getting the final car. So I don't know my guess would be that he texted Elon right away and said, hey, can I buy the last one? And Elon said yes. And that's why Steve posted. So, again, I would, with no disrespect or offense to Steve, I would rather it go straight into a museum. But at least we know history says that Steve will take good care of it. And it is a poetic full circle in that regard, that the customer number 1 gets the final car. And then history also tells us that Steve will donate it to a museum, whether it's the Peterson or another one, when he's done with it. So that is the signature red thing. I'm gonna hold firm on that. I reached out to Lars, and I need to reach out to Franz too, and just float the idea. Now, I posted that on X, and Steve Jurvetson, he liked the post. So it clearly means that Steve would be on board if Tesla asked him if he wanted that car painted in signature red. So if it happens, please give me full credit. No, I'm half kidding. I would like a little credit if the final car is signature red. It's entirely possible that Franz and Tesla and the team have already had the same thought as I have there. But anyway, here's another bit of fallout from the end of production on the Model S, that the 18650 form factor battery cells from Panasonic that have been made, at Gigafactory 1, Giga Nevada, ever since it opened, Tesla will no longer need those. There will be no more 18650 cars. Unless new Roadster uses them, which is possible. I can't rule that out. I mean, would seem like they would go with their own cells, the 4680s, but unless that proves to be the case, the 18650s will be retired as well, which I don't know what that means for their relationship with Panasonic at all, but that's a random factoid about all of this. Here's another thought I had. Lucid, and certainly Rivian as well, and maybe even a few other companies, those guys are jumping up and down, throwing a party that Tesla is waving the white flag on S and X. Because those companies are both, as of now, low-volume automakers. Rivian is looking to break that. They're looking to go higher volume with the R2 this year, and I'm rooting like heck for them. But as of now, those two companies are pretty low volume, so even though S and X are low volume, if Lucid gets, I don't know, half of the Model S business, people that wanted a Model S but now will not be able to get one, that's a huge boon to Lucid. And if Rivian and Lucid, I don't know, more or less split the Model X customer base, the would-be customer base, because Lucid has the new Gravity, and of course Rivian has the R1S. That's a huge boost to each of those companies. So those two fellow EV-only startup automakers, those guys are jumping for joy at Tesla's decision here. In fact, they're probably the only ones celebrating this. But I have one other crazy thought before I'm going to get a little, not emotional, but like I want to get into my feelings a little bit on this. And that is this, and I was telling my wife this, and she, to her credit, she kept a straight face when she could have just rolled her eyes, but the thought I had, and I'm going to guess that a number of you had this same thought, even though I cannot afford a Model S, and it's actually honestly too big for my life, like it's too big of a car, hearing this news made me want to buy a plaid Model S before they go away. Because I, as I've said many times, I feel like it is the best overall car in the world when you factor everything in. And yeah, I just like, I've never owned one. I mean, there was a long period of time where I badly wanted one. I was long before the Model 3 came around, and I first got into Tesla, and it's like, man, is there some way I could swing it that I could get a Model S? And it worked out pretty well for me, where I ended up getting Model 3 Performance and then new Model 3 Performance. But this, maybe some of you are nodding along right now with me. Like, it just, that was the somewhat irrational thought that popped into my head, was like, man, this makes me want to buy a plaid Model S before they go away. But I want to come back now to how first world sad this makes me. And like I was saying, it's not just me. The entire Tesla community is mourning this, and I'm not sure if Tesla expected this reaction. It's not like a big wave of anti-Tesla. It's not people, for the most part, people aren't angry. Although I'll tell you, I did get a text, one of the texts I got from a good friend of mine who's had an S and 2 X's. He's on his second X. He's the sweetest guy. I love him to death. And he texted me, like, his initial reaction, he was mad. Like, he was upset that Tesla was leaving behind the luxury buyers, the higher end buyers. He was not happy. He was like genuinely upset. Not in like a, throw his phone at the wall kind of way, but like he wasn't happy about it. And I think I'm sure he was probably sad too, but yeah, he was upset. And I don't blame him. But again, I got so many texts. Like last week, the whole Tesla community was pretty darn mad at Tesla, and I'm one of them. We all, and understandably so, justifiably so, at the whole removal of basic autopilot from the cars. That's talked about it last week. I don't need to get back into it, but everybody was mad at Tesla last week. And this week, I think everybody's sad at Tesla. Like sad for Tesla and sad about Tesla. And speaking of sad at Tesla, there are probably a lot of employees there that are kind of sad about this. Like, I'm sure there are people that have worked on GA1, which is the S and X assembly line in Fremont, that if they probably worked on that line for years. Like, they probably have some serious veterans that have been building those cars for years and years and years that are sad about, even if those people are going to be building Optimi, they're going to be building robots. So they're going to be fine. That's the good news. But I'm sure that there are some people at Tesla that are sad as well. But the thing is that what makes me, again, car sad, not real life sad. A person didn't die, a beloved pet didn't die. It's a car. But the Model S genuinely changed automotive history. Again, like even the biggest Tesla hater that's like hate listening to this right now. I hope there's nobody that's doing that. Like if you're hate listening to this, just go listen to something you get enjoyment out of. But even the biggest Tesla hater would have to acknowledge that the Model S changed automotive history. The biggest gearhead, the biggest like anti-EV, EV hater, petrol head, like even that guy would have to acknowledge that the Model S changed the game. To remind you, the Model S won Motor Trend's Car of the Year award in 2013, and it did so unanimously. Their entire panel of voters chose it unanimously, which never happens. And then years later, it went on to be named Motor Trend's Ultimate Car of the Year, which was like a decade by decade competition. And it beat out 70 years worth of other cars to be named Motor Trend's Ultimate Car of the Year. And if you were following Tesla in the early days like I was, or even, let's say, if you weren't, it's totally okay if you weren't. In fact, statistically, most of you weren't. And that's okay, because this has become an EV movement that the Model S, it didn't pioneer it. It didn't technically start it, but it was the Big Bang moment of the EV universe, I would argue. And so if you weren't following all this in the early years, like I was, let me just tell you that the Model S had to be not just good, it had to be amazing for Tesla to even have a chance to survive, because they weren't making any money. Tesla wasn't profitable until they finished the production hell of Model 3. That entire time, Roadster, S, X, Tesla was not a profitable company. And in order for them to even have a chance to make it long term, the Model S had to be incredible. And it was. It's unbelievable if you kind of go back and look at it. Like, my guy, John, the DeLorean, okay? I know, take a shot, right? If you're playing the Ride the Lightning drinking game. Oh, Ryan mentioned DeLorean again. But John DeLorean, a seasoned auto industry executive, engineer who became an executive, had built lots of cars over the years. The GTO. He started the muscle car era, arguably. Became the head of Pontiac. The guy starts a new car company, goes to build his own car from scratch, and it doesn't work, right? And not long term, right? It doesn't last. Tesla comes along, Lotus builds them their first car, the Roadster, this proof of concept. Let's show everybody that EVs are actually cool and fun. And then let's build our own car for a lot less money and really start to transition the world to sustainable transport, as the company mission was at the time. And they actually did it by building. They did something no one had ever done, which was build an amazing battery electric vehicle. GM, sure, they built the EV1. It wasn't an amazing car. I don't want to take anything away from it, but that car was never going to sell as many units as the Model S sold. Not in, it would have evolved and iterated, but the S was incredible, and it had to be for Tesla to have a chance. And I can honestly, for me, now for many of you, let me start there. For many of you, the Model S is what got you into Tesla, and quite possibly what got you into EVs. I can't say that because I had the extraordinary good fortune. I've told the story many times about the DeLorean Club event we had at the Tesla showroom here in the Bay Area. I had the very good fortune of being able to experience behind the wheel, driving. I drove the original Roadster, and that's the car that flipped the light switch for me. But the Model S was the first EV that was actually a legitimately great car by any and every metric. Safety, performance, cargo volume, efficiency, technology, styling, like you name it. The Model S was a Swiss Army knife. And it was amazing. And that's why it won Motor Trend's Car of the Year award unanimously, and why it was their ultimate car of the year. The Model S started the EV movement as we know it today. I still remember the first time I drove the Model S. It was brief, and it was with my cousin Pat. May he rest in peace. Pat was on the reservation list before the car came out. He had put down a $5,000 deposit. And so that is how we got a test drive when Pat came up from Arizona to visit me in the fall of 2012. At that time, they had started deliveries of signature cars, and they were starting general production. They were only giving test drives to reservation holders at that point. So Pat went first, of course. I would never take that from him. He took the first drive. We had the Tesla rep in the car with us, of course, then. And then Pat and the Tesla rep very graciously let me get behind the wheel and drive the car. And then in March of 2013, Pat got his car. And I wasn't there for his delivery, but I flew down like the weekend after he got it, right after he got it. And we just drove around all weekend. And we had so much fun. I will never forget that. I'm sorry. I will never forget that, man. This is making me miss Pat. I'm sorry. I don't recall Pat ever outright saying this, but I think I can pretty confidently say that Model S, that was his favorite thing he ever owned in life. That was his favorite. Now, he loved his Harleys. He was a motorcycle guy too. But that Model S, he loved that car so much. And he and I shared so many great times and great adventures in that car and because of that car. And I think that Pat would be pretty sad right now too if he were here. He would be sad about the S and X going away. Now, of course, the Model S went on to, it got kind of forgotten about. You might remember the S got pretty well forgotten about for a few years there amidst the launch and the production hell, the ramp up of production on the Model 3. That was when Tesla was trying to, as I was saying earlier, not just become a profitable company, but first and foremost, just survive. And they had to ramp Model 3 to do that. And so the Model S kind of fell behind. Like the 3 literally had more range. The long range 3 for 50 grand literally had more range than the, I think it was $70,000 Model S 75D at the time. And so the S kind of stagnated for a little while there. But then Tesla started paying a little more attention to it. We got the Raven. We got the P100D. But then the real second life for the Model S, I would argue, came in the form of the aforementioned Model S Plaid. Now, sure, there had been quicker and quicker Model S's over the years. Tesla never stopped making that car quicker. They never stopped throwing more power at it. The P85 started things off right in 2012, right out of the gate. Then the P85D added the second motor and a whole bunch more power. Dropped that 0 to 60 down into the low threes. From the P85 was like 4.4 seconds. A software update took it to 4.2. Over-the-air software update. P85D was 3.2. Then they got it down to 3.1 with a software update. Then the ludicrous hardware came in. You had P85D ludicrous for a real short amount of time, and then P90D ludicrous. And there are people listening right now that own each of these cars. So now I'm saying P90D, and my P90D people are nodding their head right now. And P90D dropped it down to like 2.9, 2.8 seconds, 0 to 60. Then the P100D pushed it further. That car, I want to say, was down at like 2.6 or 2.5. Then the Raven powertrain came in, got it down to around, I believe it was 2.4. And then the Model S and Model X disappeared. They were out of production for about 6 months. And in that time, Tesla built the new, as we still call it now, and I guess maybe we'll call it that forever, but the new S and X, the Palladium drivetrain, that was the code name, Palladium, as Raven was the code name for the previous one. But the Plaid, the new S and X, widened the Model S, gave it a fatter rear tires, staggered stance. I guess some of the earlier S's had staggered tires. But widened the car out in the back, I guess, and in the front too. Just widened it all around. And of course, the Model S Plaid, with its 3-motor setup, and became the first production car to ever break the 2-second 0 to 60 mark. And it did so in a gigantic 5,000-pound sedan. But the thing about the Plaid, it wasn't just a one-off party trick that you do at full state of charge. The Model S Plaid keeps pulling hard at any speed with that tri-motor setup. If you're already going 90 in a Model S Plaid and you hammer that accelerator pedal, the car will rocket you forward. It's stupid. Like, that's the best word I can come up for. And I mean that in a good way, not as an insult or not in a derogatory way. The Model 3 performance, particularly the new one, which I recognize only came out well after the Plaid, but the Model 3 performance is quick, and I love it, and I still love hammering that accelerator when I get a safe chance to do so. But the Plaid S is stupid. That's the level of performance that the Plaid has. And that fixed one of the weaknesses of previous Tesla performance cars. Plenty of you listening right now own Plaids. And I know how much all of you love them because many of you have told me how much you love them. In fact, I would be curious if any of you out there, like I was saying earlier about how I had the thought of even though I can't afford a Plaid, and it's too big for my life anyway, that this news, this sunsetting of the S and X makes me want to buy a Plaid S. I wonder if any of you out there that have the means to do so are actually going to do it. Maybe some of you have already ordered. Even if you hadn't planned to. Like, I would love to hear from you, especially if you had no actual plan to do this, but you saw it get discontinued and you decided to order one. Reach out to me, teslapodcast@gmail.com, or call in on the Ride the Lightning hotline, which I'll give you. You can find the dial-in information for that in the episode description. Boy, I've been talking for so long, which I warned you that's probably what was going to happen. I got to take a quick pause here and mention my friends at Accelerate Auto and their XCare extended warranty option for all EVs, including, as I've been mentioning the last couple weeks, Rivian owners. If you're planning to keep your Rivian long term, you already know that repairs, suspension, electronics, they're not cheap once the factory coverage ends. That's why I've partnered with XCare and continue to do so. An extended protection option built specifically for EVs, very much including Rivian. Right now, Rivian owners can get $200 off coverage when purchasing online using the referral code BDRRTL at checkout. And if you'd like to combine that $200 discount with 12 months of 0% financing, nice option there. That option is available with the help of an XCare specialist. To get started, visit xcare.com, that's XCARE.com, and enter BDRRTL at checkout, or call 844-755-4186 to speak with an XCare specialist. It's a smart way to lock in protection early and avoid surprises later with one of the most trusted EV protection options in the industry. And now the Model X. I have not forgotten about you, Model X. Oh, the X, the Fabergé egg of cars, as Elon would always refer to it. It was the first mass-produced car to have gull-wing doors. Yes, I know that Tesla calls them falcon wing doors because they hinge in a second place, but they're in the gull-wing family. The first mass-produced car to have gull-wing doors since my beloved DeLorean. And with the Model X sunsetting here, we will once again go back to no mass-produced cars having gull-wing or falcon wing doors. The X is an awesome car. It's awesome. The six-seater was always so sweet to me. It just always felt like the cabin of a private airplane in the six-seater configuration with those fancy second-row seats on the nice pedestals. And if you talk to Model X owners out there, they'll tell you, a lot of them will say that their favorite thing about the car isn't the falcon wing doors. Some of them will say that. But I promise you, a lot of them will say that instead, their favorite thing about the X, that even the S doesn't have, in fact, no other Tesla has it, is the auto present and auto close doors, the invisible butler, if you will. Meaning you simply approach the car and the driver's door senses your phone key or key fob, if we're talking about an older X, and it simply opens the driver door for you. You get in the car without touching the door, and then you simply tap the brake pedal, and the driver's door closes. And I've spoken to so many Model X owners over the years who just love that, and then they get in another car, even if it's another Tesla, and they get bummed out that they don't have that feature. That is the secret favorite feature, I would say, the secret best feature of the Model X. And there has truly never been a car in history like the Model X, either before it or since it debuted. I remember being at the Model X launch event. It was actually just like a month and a half after this podcast started. It's one of the earliest episodes because that event was at the end of September in 2015. And I started this podcast at the beginning of August of 2015. And I remember Elon talking on stage when he's presenting the car. about it being able to fit all 5 of his kids in it in the 7-seat configuration, right? Now, Elon has gone on to have a couple more Model X fulls worth of kids. He's into Rabovin territory now, but the X was Tesla's family hauler, and it quickly grew to outsell the Model S because SUVs just tend to outsell sedans in the current market, particularly the American market here. I looked this up. At their peak, the S and X combined sold 101,312 units in 2017, not coincidentally, because that's right before and right as the Model 3 arrived, because in 2017, the only way you could get a Model 3 was to be a Tesla employee. All the 2017s went to employees. Then in early 2018, they started delivering them to S and X owners, and then after that to Model 3 reservation holders who didn't already own an S or an X. So 101,312, that was the peak. That was the best year that S and X ever had. And the best estimate is that it was about a 55-45 split favoring the X. So call it about maybe 56,000 of those were X's, and about 45,000 or so were Model S's. In fact, our friend, the Tesla tipster Sawyer Merritt, went back and did some math and said that at least up to now, there have been about 740,000 total S's and X's combined. And which means that when the last ones do roll off the line in Q2, whether that's middle of Q2, end of Q2, whatever, that it's going to end up at about 750K, maybe even a little more. We'll see if there could be a little spike here, a little surge for this last run of production, but 740K or so to date, and that's a heck of a lot of EVs over the years. But I'll say that I'm not just first world sad about the discontinuation of these two great cars specifically. Again, I've already said it on this podcast. You've all heard me say 100 times, I think the Model S Plaid's the best overall car in the world. And I'm a car guy. Thing is, you guys know that. I'm a car guy. That's what got me into Tesla, was the cars themselves. The electrification was second to me at the time. It was the cars themselves and the technology and the just radical rethink of what a car was and the performance of them. That's what got me into Tesla. And that's why I started this podcast, is because I love the cars. Again, Tesla has discontinued a car once before, the original Roadster, though as I was saying, that was planned from the beginning. It was always going to be a short-term thing while they got their own factory and built their own sedan as per the original secret master plan. But I'm first world sad about this because it also, to me, signals the beginning of the end of Tesla making cars that people love to drive. You'll hear Elon pretty explicitly talk about this in a clip that I have prepped for you in a few minutes. They are going to make one more go, right? They're going to make a $250,000 middle finger to internal combustion engine cars in the form of the Roadster. And then, again, this actually, I can't believe I'm saying this, performance won't matter to them anymore. Driving dynamics won't matter to them anymore. Handling won't matter to them anymore. Their focus will shift to safety, where it's always been there, but safety and comfort in your autonomous pod, whether that's a cybercab or some other autonomous vehicle that Tesla might make in the future. And that's cool. Don't get me wrong. That's cool. I get where they're going, but they they are moving on. And as a car guy, that does bum me out on one level. It does. In fact, I have to confess to all of you, if you're not tired of hearing me, I've been talking about, I guess I've been going for half an hour plus now, so I do apologize. But I have to confess that for the first time ever, I stopped and wondered this week. I was like, wait a minute. Is there going to be an end of the line to this podcast? Now, hopefully not. And I'm not planning on that because the EV market has grown and there are lots of really fun EVs out there from other brands to talk about, which is exactly why I started talking about other EVs about a year ago. And it's not that I'm not going to be interested in whatever autonomous pods that Tesla intends to make, but I'm a car guy. That's in my DNA at this point. I've told you all about how when I was the littlest of kids, I had a collection of Matchbox and Hot Wheels cars, and I could identify any car on the road when I was in the back seat and my parents were driving us around. And I've just always been a car guy. I've always been into cars and autonomous pods. And I'm not using pods as slander here. I don't mean it to come across that way, but I don't want to necessarily call them cars, but I think, they're going to be pods because they're just there to protect you and make you comfortable. They're not there to make you enjoy the twisty curves in a canyon road, right? That's not what their purpose is. But today is yesterday, today when I made the notes, it was the first time that I ever had the thought of, there might come a day when Ride the Lightning won't be the Tesla and EV podcast anymore. It might just be the EV podcast. We'll see. That's nothing to worry about for you or for me for now. I have every intention of continuing every single week as I've done for the past 10 plus years, because there's still plenty of fun stuff going on between the Roadster and just watching and covering the end of SNX is going to be, it's bittersweet, but it's going to be interesting. So yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry about that. I'm very much here. And I'm still having fun. I'm saddened by this news, but I'm still very much having fun. All right. Let's go now. Let me play you the rest of Elon's opening statement. Take a listen to the rest of it.
And so let's say with respect to full self-driving and robotaxi, people are obviously following with very close attention the progress of FSD, and you can experience it for yourself. If you've got a Tesla, you notice with every software update, the car gets better and better at autonomy, and we're we're able to do our first rides with no safety monitor in the car in Austin. These are paid rides, so these were just sort of randomly selected paid rides with no safety monitor, and we're, I think maybe as of maybe yesterday or so, we actually don't even have a chase car or anything like that. So these are just cars with no people in them, and no one's following the car in Austin. So we obviously are being very cautious about this because we want to have no injuries or serious accidents along the way. So I think it makes sense to be very cautious, but you'll see the amount of autonomy increase dramatically, I think, every month, essentially. So, and then there will also be an opportunity, something we've talked about for a long time, for existing owners of Teslas to add or subtract their cars to the fleet, kind of like how Airbnb works, where you can add or subtract your house to the Airbnb inventory. And And I think probably the value of the Tesla, the sort of partial people adding or subtracting the cost of the Tesla autonomous fleet is probably a little underweighted by a lot of people, because we've got millions of cars with AI4 that can do this. So, it's that it might potentially. I think it will provide an opportunity for a lot of customers to earn more by lending their car to the fleet than their lease cost to Tesla. Which is it's kind of like you get in that scenario, you basically get paid to own a Tesla. It's quite a good scenario. And we expect to have fully autonomous vehicles in probably, I don't know, somewhere between a quarter and half of the United States by the end of the year, pending regulatory approval. A big factor would be if there's some kind of federal preemption for autonomous vehicles. In the absence of that, you kind of have to go on a city-by-city or state-by-state basis. But nonetheless, we even if it is city-by-city, state-by-state, we expect to be in, I don't know, dozens of major cities by the end of the year. With respect to energy, the Tesla energy team has done incredible work, and the growth rate on that is continuing to be very strong, and we're building more manufacturing capacity, and expect that and energy will have very high growth for really as far into the future as we can imagine. The solar opportunity is underestimated. We think the best way to add significant capability to the grid or not to the grid, let's say it's powering AI data centers, is solar and batteries on Earth and solar in space. So that's why we're going to work towards getting 100 gigawatts a year of solar cell production, integrating across the entire supply chain from raw materials all the way to finished solar panels. Maybe a bit more about Optimus. We'll probably unveil Optimus 3 in a few months, and I think it's going to be quite surprising to people. It's an incredibly capable robot, and as I mentioned, we're replacing the SX line in Fremont with a million unit per year line of Optimus. Now, because it is a completely new supply chain, there's really nothing from the existing supply chain that exists in Optimus. Everything is designed from physics first principles. So that means the normal S-curve of manufacturing ramp will be longer for Optimus than it is for products that have at least some portion of an existing supply chain. Like when everything's new, the production rate will be proportionate to the least lucky, least confident part of the entire supply chain. And if there's 10,000 things that need to go right, it's it only takes one to be slowed to lag that. But so it will be sort of a stretched out S-curve, but I'm confident that we'll get to 1 million units a year in Fremont of Optimus 3. And this Optimus really will be a general purpose robot that can learn by observing human behavior. So you can demonstrate a task, or literally verbally describe a task, or show it a task, even show it a video, and it will be able to do that task. So it's going to be a very capable robot. I think long-term Optimus will have a very significant impact on the U.S. GDP. It will actually move the needle on U.S. GDP significantly. So, in conclusion, There's still obviously many who doubt our ambitions for creating amazing abundance, but we're confident it can be done, and that we're making the right moves technologically to ensure that it does. And Tesla's obviously never been a company to shy away from solving some of the hardest problems. I think that's kind of how you build value in a company, is you solve hard problems. It's like, I don't know how you create value by solving easy problems. So there's a lot of hard problems that the Tesla team is going to solve, but it's an incredibly talented, hardworking team. And I'd like to thank actually everyone at Tesla for their incredible hard work. And it's an honor to work with such a talented group. So thank you to everyone who is supporting this mission. The future is more exciting than you can imagine.
All right, so here's a key logistical question that I have about adding or subtracting your car to the robotaxi fleet. How will that work in terms of meeting safety and cleanliness standards, in terms of your tire wear, any bodywork damage the car might have, functionality of headlights, taillights, etc.? Like, there's going to have to be some sort of check on your car to make sure that it's fit for service. My question is, can Tesla do all that remotely? Like, they can see some of the car with the onboard cameras to, say, check for damage. And the cars kind of already can tell how much tread wear is left on the tires, and they definitely know the tire pressures. But that is a question that I think does need answering. Now, as I've said before, I don't really get the enjoyable abundance thing. I don't agree with it as a valid and attainable and trackable mission statement for Tesla. I don't see it. And I am also skeptical that Optimus will become, as Elon has said many times, the best-selling product of any kind ever. Now, in fairness to him, he didn't say that on this call, but he has said that a number of times before. I just don't see that when it costs $25,000 for a robot. It just, that to me seems like that's going to be a toy for the upper class, the more wealthier income bracket. Now, unless maybe Tesla expects that people won't want to own cars anymore thanks to autonomy, so maybe they'll take out financed Optimus loans instead of car loans. Maybe that's how Elon and Tesla see everyone having an Optimus and it providing everybody at every economic level in society anything they want. That he literally said that in that quote. So Tesla, they need to convince me on this one. And hey, maybe I'll say maybe the Optimus V3 demo coming up later this year will absolutely do it. Maybe it'll blow me away, because what I can say is, in the very beginning, when I had experienced the original Roadster, I said, you know what, no, this works. This is going to be huge. Like, I believe in this. And I'm not quite there yet with Optimus. I don't know, maybe I never will be, or maybe I'll just be late to the party and everybody will say, I told you so. But I don't know. The enjoyable abundance thing, I don't see it. I'm not on board. Next, we move to the investor questions, the most upvoted questions. So this one includes an interesting answer from Lars and from Elon about what will we get more models from Tesla and more vehicle segments? Take a listen to this one.
As Elon said, the future is autonomous, and obviously autonomy and cybercab are going to change the global market size and mix quite significantly. I think that's quite obvious. General transportation is going to be better served by autonomy, as it will be safer and cheaper. And over 90% of vehicle miles traveled are with 2 or less passengers now, which is why we designed cybercab that way. In this new autonomous market, we at Tesla have the advantage of efficiency, cost, and manufacturing at scale that really no one else has. And we've built that over the last decades. And we believe that segment that we are creating will grow millions year over year.
Just to add to what Lars said there, it's worth the point that Lars made, which is that 90% of miles driven are with one or two passengers, or one or two occupants, essentially, is a very important one, because that implies that the cybercab, which is a dedicated two-seater dedicated robotaxi. It's a little confusing with the terms robotaxi and cybercab. Sorry about the confusion, but and in fact, in some states, we're not allowed to use the word cab or taxi, so it's going to get even more strange. It's going to be like cyber vehicle or something, cyber car. But the cybercab, which is a specific vehicle model that we're making, does not have a steering wheel or pedals. So this is clearly, there's no fallback mechanism here. It's like this car either drives itself or it does not drive. And we expect to start production in April. As always, it's an S curve of the production rate is an S curve. So it starts off very slowly and then grows exponentially. Then you hit the linear, and then ultimately, it asymptotes at whatever your target volume is. So, but we would expect over time to make far more cybercabs than all of our other vehicles combined. Given that 90% of distance driven or distance traveled, exactly, no longer driving, is one or two people. I think it's like 80% is just one. So it would mean that long-term cybercab would make several times more cybercabs per year than all of our other vehicles combined.
Well, this does contradict what the board chair, Robin Denholm, had said not too long ago about Tesla making the Cybercab with a wheel and pedals if regulators required it. And funny enough, the engineering test cars that are running around various cities, those cars do have Cybertruck squircles for wheels in them, in case the engineers need to intervene, of course. It makes sense since the robotaxis are steer-by-wire that you'd use the Cybertruck stuff. The wheel and pedals are probably literally plug-and-play. But anyway, Elon has always been, shall we say, stubborn when he really believes in something. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. Like, say, Model 3 production ramp. He stayed stubborn, the company got through it, and they became profitable. Sometimes bad, like when he had to walk back the deletion of the turn signal stalks on the Model 3 and the Model Y. Also, I got to say, too, and again, you can come back and say, I told you so later. I am skeptical at this moment in time, and I realize that Tesla's going to ramp to this. This is not going to be something that happens this year. But I am skeptical that there will be demand for 1.5 to 1.7 million cybercabs per year, because that's what they say when they're saying all of the other vehicles combined. So we'll see. Got some big numbers, big promises here being thrown around. Here was the next question, kind of similar. Well, the question was about whether Tesla still plans to launch new models to address new price segments. Take a listen to this answer.
To further on what we were just talking about, we've launched our least expensive models ever over the last few months and are continuing to expand those models globally. And over the last decade, we have continually brought down the cost of our vehicles without sacrificing range, performance, or premiumness. And we'll continue to do that, as Vaibhav said, investing in our factories. But these are all trade-offs of where we spend our time or money. And to Elon's point just now, with Cybercab coming, we are aiming to bring that Tesla premium ride experience to our largest market yet. That could be 5 or 10 times our current levels of production. This new autonomous market, you have to start thinking about us as moving to providing transportation as a service more than the total addressable market for the purchased vehicles alone. And of course, we do have plans to have robotaxis in various shapes and sizes, but obviously Cybercab will be the grand majority of that volume.
Yeah, the vast majority of miles traveled will be autonomous in the future. I would say probably less than, I'm just guessing, but probably less than 5% of miles driven will be where somebody's actually driving the car themselves in the future. It may be as low as 1%.
And here's that additional clarity on Tesla's future vehicle plans that I was mentioning earlier. I told you that Franz seemed to be saying this during my last interview with him in October, but here is Lars and Elon making it crystal clear. The future is autonomous at Tesla, and so the Roadster will be the last new vehicle that Tesla ever makes with manual inputs. New vehicle. They're going to keep making 3 and Y. Don't worry about that. But the last new vehicle. Now, I'm not suggesting that Elon is wrong for pivoting the company here. I've gotten a lot of notes about this from you guys this week, and people have strong feelings here, and I get it. As I have said many times, betting against Elon has historically been a bad idea, and he's always been good at seeing the long-term future. But like I was saying earlier, as a car guy who started this podcast because I love Tesla's cars, this just hurts to hear. And I also just believe that there is going to be a significant incremental need, meaning in the next 5 to 10 years, for cars with inputs that people want to drive, even if they have autonomous capability. I just think that the mental, what's the word I'm looking for? The mental part of the equation for people to be convinced that they're okay riding, that they're okay to just hand the control over to an autonomous vehicle. I think that's going to be a tougher problem to crack than maybe Elon thinks. Because we know Elon tends to think very optimistically, right? Like, here's an example where he said many times about how your car will be making money for you when it's not in use with autonomy. You put it into the robotaxi fleet. And the reality is, I think you'd ask 100 people, I'll bet you at least 70 of them, probably more, are going to have no interest in letting other people ride in their car, even if that's going to make them money. I think he's super optimistic, but I do think sometimes, well, at least I disagree with him on the sort of ground level nitty gritty stuff, whereas he's kind of up in with his head in the clouds. Again, not necessarily in a bad way, but that's kind of where I am with this with regard to where Tesla's going. All right, the next question was about gross margin targets for each car, which, if you know me, if you've been listening long enough, you probably know that's not normally a topic I would be too interested in, but the answer to this question was interesting to me, so here you go.
We've talked about this with the previous two questions, but transportation, as we know, is changing. And I think we cannot keep applying the same framework from a car sales model to the future, what we are trying to do. So it has to be looked at it more holistically. Autonomy software will be the driver for growth from now on. And as we aim to maximize the global fleet, we've been laser focused on COGS from our side to make sure, because that is something which we manage. So we will keep focusing on that, but I think we need to look at it from a different dimension.
Yeah, like this Cybercab, the whole design of Cybercab was to optimize the fully considered cost per mile of autonomous driving. And it's a different design problem than if you're trying to design cars for people who will be driving versus being driven. So Cybercab is like I said, super optimized for minimum cost per mile and also for a much higher duty cycle. So it would expect Cybercab to be used, probably 50 or 60 hours a week instead of the 10 or 11 hours a week that a driven vehicle is used. So, typically people might drive their car for an hour and a half a day on average, so it's like 10 hours per week out of 168. But I think an autonomous vehicle is likely to be used probably 5 times as often, which means that you need to design the vehicle for a much more wear and tear per unit of time and much more resilience. It's more like a commercial truck. that's in continuous operation or close to continuous operation is how you design an autonomous vehicle. And so we will have larger vehicles in the Cybercab in the future that are designed for full autonomy. And we've actually shown pictures of this, and in fact have shown prototypes. So this is not exactly a secret. In fact, we've given people rides in them. So, we're not keeping this hiding this light under a bushel here. It's like we're literally saying what we're going to do and have said what we're going to do for a while. I think long term we would really the only vehicles that we'll make will be autonomous vehicles, with the exception of the next generation Roadster, which we're hoping to debut in April. Hopefully, it's going to be something out of this world.
And so, if those previous two clips weren't enough for you, here's the Tesla executive team hammering home their autonomous future plan even harder in that clip there. All right, next up was an excellent question about, really in short, the status of the robotaxi scale-up, as well as the arrival of full self-driving unsupervised in customer cars. Take a listen.
Yeah, we have scaled the robotaxi service that's available to customers over the last year in order to just learn the scaling problems without having to wait for the unsupervised. Basically, two goals. One is learn as much as possible from the fleet with the safety monitors, and secondly, be laser focused with the engineering team to solve the unsupervised FSD problem. I think we did both. By the end of last year, we had a long tail of issues that we were able to churn through. And then in the last couple of weeks, we had started our unsupervised robotaxi service to public customers in Austin. I think some customers took rides last week, and also the service continues today without any rear car or something like that. Separately, we did scale the fleet size in the Bay Area and in Austin, and through that we learned issues with charging and other issues that we would have seen once we scale the unsupervised fleet. So both are happening in parallel. A variant of the software that's used for the robotaxi service was shipped to customers with V14, and customers saw a huge jump in performance, a lot of happy feedback from customers. And since then, we have improved the software significantly as well. And customers will continue to see with their own software releases that the software is so good that they're screaming to remove the driver monitoring software because they're bored inside the car too much.
Adding to that a little bit with what Ashok said about learning about our charging and service needs, we're using our vast network of charging and service centers that really only Tesla has in this space to jumpstart our infrastructure build-out needs to get ahead of robotaxi and autonomous vehicle demand. And we expect that because of this network, we are the only company capable of scaling at the rate that is needed for the tsunami of autonomy that is coming.
Yeah.
Well, that's all well and good, but since Lars was talking about leveraging Tesla's vast network of chargers to jumpstart autonomy, I have a key question. What about wireless charging? Because supposedly that's all the robotaxis have. So with the start of production supposedly coming up in 8 to 10 weeks in April, is there any update on that infrastructure? Or, and actually I got the answer to this since I wrote my notes, will the Cybercabs have, in addition, if they will also have a traditional NACS port so that they can recharge if there isn't a wireless charger nearby? And the answer has turned out to be yes on that, because the folks at What's Inside managed to catch a Cybercab at a supercharger plugging in. And at least on the engineering prototypes, we don't know if it'll be this way on the actual production vehicle, but there is an NACS port hiding in the rear left corner of the bumper, the rear bumper. So the driver's side, at least here in the US, the driver's side. So you just basically pull that it doesn't automatically flip up. It's a manual thing, but you just pull it open, and then you can plug that in. So that is at least answers that, but I still very curious about the wireless charging infrastructure. All right, next up, remember earlier in this podcast when I teased the fate of the Cybertruck? Well, here's more on that if you've been curious.
Actually, in its segment, Cybertruck continues to be a leader and is selling more than any other electric truck out there, while our competition continues to pull back. But to the question itself, from a line standpoint, we always design our lines to be super flexible. We built 3 and Y on the same line. We built S and X on the same line still, showing that we can do that. The Cybertruck line was designed in the same way and is one of our most fully ready for autonomy platforms.
Yeah. We will transition the Cybertruck line to just a fully autonomous line. And there's obviously a market there for cargo delivery, like you say, like localized cargo delivery within a city, within a few hundred miles, something like that. There's a lot of cargo that needs to move locally within a city, and an autonomous Cybertruck could be very useful for that.
Well, I had to listen back to that to make sure I was hearing correctly, and I thought that was pretty clear from Elon, that Tesla plans to eventually, we don't know quite when, but eventually turn the Cybertruck into an autonomous cargo truck, basically, meaning presumably no user inputs, and probably means you're not buying one. I mean, maybe you still could, I guess, but so if I'm crazy, if you're not getting that out of it, if I'm totally misreading that, drop me an email, teslapodcast@gmail.com. But anyway, as Lars mentioned, yes, Cybertruck is the top-selling EV pickup truck, but unfortunately, as I've talked about in recent episodes, that market, the EV pickup truck market, just has not developed like anybody, be it Ford, GM, Rivian, or Tesla, thought it would. I mean, we know for a fact that the Cybertruck is selling at 10% of the level that Tesla thought it would, and they just discontinued their other 2 low-volume vehicles. So, you can kind of, I don't think there's a lot of reading between the lines that needs to happen. It's pretty clear from that statement from Elon. And, granted, yes, Tesla is planning to build a new low-volume vehicle, the Roadster. That car is a freak of nature one-off that, quite honestly, Tesla's probably only building because they already took a bunch of people's money for it 8 years ago. But anyway, the point is that the Cybertruck, in its current form, probably is not long for this world at the volume it's currently outputting at. Next up, when is full self-driving going to be 100% supervised? That was the next question, and here is the answer.
Well, it is 100% unsupervised, and FSD is 100% unsupervised. I mean, we obviously have cars operating with no one in them and no safety monitor and no follow car or anything like that in Austin right now. For customers, we're being just very cautious with the rollout. I mean, with each successive version, as we prove it out, and we make sure that there are no sort of unique issues in particular cities, because like sometimes you get like some very difficult intersection, and it'll be an intersection where a lot of humans have accidents. By the way, there's like some pretty nutty intersections where there are a lot of humans make mistakes and have accidents in various cities. So we want to make sure that FSD can handle those unusual intersections. Like if you take LA, for example, where Wilshire and Santa Monica combine is like there's about, 20 traffic lights. And people are constantly having accidents there. So you want to make sure that FSD can handle unique things in a particular city. And we're also just being paranoid about safety. But with each successful release of FSD, we will reduce the amount of driver monitoring that's needed proportionate to the safety of the FSD build.
Well, on this note, there wasn't a lot that I wanted to pull out of the shareholder letter this time. All the fireworks were on the call itself this quarter. But there was one fun new chart added to the shareholder deck that I thought I would share with you. It's a planned robotaxi coverage chart. So we've got SF Bay Area, status safety driver, right? There's a safety driver in the car with you. Austin, ramping unsupervised, as we've already heard that talked about. And then here's the real fun of it. We have the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 markets confirmed by Tesla here, all due in the first half of 2026. So by the end of June, we have Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and Las Vegas. So definitely wanted to share all of that with you. And in fact, let's see here. I know this has been a really long podcast. I have 2 more clips to share with you. The next one is about chips and a key part of Tesla's growth in the coming years.
Well, I mean, I tend to spend time on whatever the most critical issue is for the company, and completing the AI5 chip design and having it be a great chip is arguably the number one most critical thing to get done, which is why I'm spending more time on that than currently anything else at Tesla. Spend pretty much every Saturday on this, and a chunk of every Tuesday. So it's like if I'm spending my Saturdays on something, it's going to be something pretty important. I do think AI5 will be a very good chip, and I feel quite confident about the design at this point. And then AI6, which will follow that, it'll be aspirationally would follow that in under a year, will be yet another big leap beyond AI5. So I feel pretty good about our chip strategy right now, but in terms of selling it outside of Tesla, we first need to make sure we have enough chips for all of our vehicle production and all of our Optimus production, and then we will actually use the AI5 chips in our data centers. We already use the AI4 chips in our data centers. So when we do training, it's a combination of the AI4 chips and NVIDIA hardware primarily that we do training with. So, but you say by the end of the decade, I mean, it's like things are changing so fast that it's hard to imagine like what happens at the end of the decade. I mean, we might. I mean, when I look ahead at say what's the limiting factor for Tesla growth, if you go say 3 or 4 years out, I think it actually is chip production. Is there enough AI logic and enough AI and enough memory, enough RAM for our volume, and right now I see that as being the thing that probably limits our growth in 3 or 4 years, which would imply that we're not selling chips outside of Tesla because we need them. In fact, I think I think it's going to make sense, and this is definitely going to be a sort of a controversial thing, but I think Tesla needs to build a terafab. I mentioned this at the shareholder meeting, but even when we look at the output of the best case output of all of our key suppliers, and I'd say even beyond suppliers, they're like strategic partners like Samsung, TSMC, and Micron. And we say like, what's the most you could possibly make? Then it's not enough. So I think in order to remove the constraint, the probable constraint in 3 or 4 years, we're going to have to build a Tesla terafab, a very big fab that includes logic, memory, and packaging domestically. And that's actually also going to be very important to ensure that we are protected against any geopolitical risks. I think people may be underweighting some of the geopolitical risks that are going to be a major factor in a few years. So Now, a lot of people will say that's crazy. Fabs are really hard. I'm like, yes, I know fabs are really hard. I don't think they're easy. But
we do hard things.
We do a lot of hard things. We didn't used to have car factories. We didn't used to have battery cell factories or lithium refineries or mega pack factories or all these other things. We figured it out. So I think it's. I think if we don't do the Tesla Terafab, we're going to be limited by supplier output of chips, and I think maybe memory is an even bigger limiter than AI logic. So for example, we have chip supply deals with TSMC in Arizona and Samsung in Texas, but currently there are no advanced memory fabs at scale in the United States. There are zero, literally zero. Hopefully, Micron will have something going in a few years because they're all headquartered in Idaho, where they make a lot of potato chips. We need to make computer chips too. Anyway, we're working with our strategic partners on the chip front, memory and logic. But I think we got to also try our hand at building a large scale fab that integrates logic, memory, and packaging. And if we don't do that, we're just going to be fundamentally limited by supply chain, especially if there's some if in a worst case geopolitical situation, it would be quite a severe situation. So I think it would be. Quite frankly, it'd be crazy not to try the Terafab. So, yeah, great. We'll have a bigger announcement on this in the future.
Boy, I know I'm only playing some clips and not the entire call, but Elon sure talked a lot about geopolitical risk on this call. What does he know that we don't about geopolitical stuff going on? Anyway, hopefully nothing bad is coming, but. Back to business, I won't be the slightest bit surprised if Tesla builds a chip fab plant. I mean, they've already built all kinds of other stuff that they need, and they're arguably, this is nothing new, they are arguably the largest, primarily vertically integrated company in the entire world. So we'll see probably not if, but when that chip fab, that Terafab starts going under construction. All right, lastly, the final question was more or less about how Tesla spends their CapEx and what's most important for them to spend money on. And I thought that Elon gave an answer that encompasses a lot of where the company's focus is at nowadays. So here's the last clip that I have for you.
Well, really all we're trying to do is make sure that we can scale to very high volume with autonomous vehicles, with humanoid robots, and that we address geopolitical risk, which I think there's so many companies out there that are asleep at the switch with regard to geopolitical risk. They just have their head in the sand and hope nothing bad will happen. I'm way more paranoid than that. I always think of Andy Grove's famous statement, "Only the paranoid survive." Why did he come up with that statement at Intel? Let's think. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that statement. So we're going to be paranoid and make sure that we can continue to build batteries and robots and AI chips, no matter what happens. And companies that don't do that, a bunch of them will cease to exist.
Yeah, I mean, remember, all this comes out of necessity. It's not that we want to do it. It's just we have no choice. Yeah,
I mean, we built the most advanced lithium refinery in the world. By the way, it's not just like our lithium refinery in Corpus Christi is not just a copy of what others have done. It's an entirely new process that is fundamentally more efficient and more advanced than anything else in the world. The same is true of our cathode refinery here in Austin, and we wish others would build this. Can other people please, for the love of God,
help?
In the name of all that is holy, can others please build this? Build this stuff.
It's not the first time you asked.
Exactly. I mean, this is not the first time you've said something like this.
Like, why do we have to build these things? Why can others not also please, can someone else build these things? I mean, it's very hard to build these things. And we build them out of desperation, not because nobody else is building lithium refineries and cathode refineries. We're pretty much the not just the largest, but also the only lithium refinery and cathode refinery in America. So we're making moves to make sure that no matter what happens, Tesla will prosper.
Well, there you go. The path has been laid out very clearly now. Nothing should surprise any of us anymore. And let's see where Tesla takes itself. Let's see where this company is heading. It may not be for everybody. It may super excite some people. It is a path that I personally would never have envisioned when I started this podcast over 10 years ago. But that's the path they're on, and we'll see what happens. By the way, I expect that probably a whole lot of you have some serious thoughts about all of this, about the cancellation of S and X and where Tesla's going. And in fact, it makes me think that we might need a slightly longer Ride the Lightning hotline phone call segment next week. We're already pushing 2 hours here, so I'm going to skip the hotline calls for this week, but I promise you that we will take plenty of time for those hotline calls next week. So if you have a question, comment, reaction, you want to call in, feel free to do it. There are 2 easy ways to do that. In either case, I humbly request that you keep your question to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many calls each week as possible. And so you either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software, record the question, then email that file to me at teslapodcast@gmail.com. Or you can take that same 90-second or less question and just call in and leave a message anytime, day or night, on the Ride the Lightning hotline itself. It's a toll-free number, and it's 1-888-989-8752. That number again, 1-888-989-TSLA. And well, as for what's going on with me and my cars, well, not much. Just kind of the same old business as usual. No complaints here. But I do want to give an entertainment recommendation for you this week before I go. And that is one of my favorite shows in the last several years. I love this show. It's just very, I guess heartwarming is the right word. It's very funny, I think. Anyway, the show is Shrinking. It's on Apple TV. It's back for season 3 that premiered this week. So check that out if you already enjoy season 1 and 2. If you're looking for a good comedy that kind of leaves you just feeling good, there's no drama, there's nothing depressing going on in it really, give it a look. Obviously you'll want to start with season 1 over on Apple TV. Time now for your Tesla Pro Tip of the Week. It comes from nearby Palo Alto, California, from KR.
Hey Ryan, KR from Palo Alto, California, here with a quick Pro Tip of the Week. For years while manually driving, I'd get annoyed at how slow the map transitions after you type in a destination. It initially shows the zoomed out overview of the whole route, and then it takes a good 10 or 15 seconds after you start driving before it finally zooms back in and gives you those helpful visuals for the first turn. In unfamiliar places, or even in just a parking lot, that delay sometimes caused me to miss the first turn because I didn't actually know where the car wanted me to go yet. Well, I finally figured out a little shortcut. After you put in the destination and you see that expanded turn-by-turn list on the left, simply tap on the top of that list, right where the large font is with the distance to your first turn, and it instantly collapses the list and snaps the map into the zoomed in view to get you on your way. It's reduced a lot of anxiety for me on the first few seconds of a trip, especially in unfamiliar neighborhoods. Figured I'd share. Cheers.
I love this one, KR. Thank you. I actually use this one constantly myself. It's a great one to point out for people who might not be aware of that one. So super appreciate you calling in with that. Love having the pro tip of the week so that we all add to our collective EV knowledge base, our Tesla knowledge base, at least a little bit each and every week. So if anyone else out there has a good Tesla or EV pro tip of the week, I'd love for you to call in and share it with me so that I can share it with everybody. I just gave you the 2 easy call-in methods just a few moments ago, so refer back to that and just send in your pro tip of the week. Time to mention a few friends of the podcast before I go, starting with a new friend, RPM Tesla. I mentioned them last week. They've been around a long, long time, longer than even Ride the Lightning's been, so they are not just some fly-by-night out of nowhere place. RPM Tesla specializes in OEM-style Tesla upgrades, focusing on carbon fiber, interior enhancements, and functional accessories that integrate seamlessly with factory designs. And in turn, they're all about compatibility, meaning their accessories do not compromise Tesla's design language, safety systems, or functionality. They design a ton of stuff in-house, like all their steering wheel upgrades for the yoke and round grip. They prioritize quality over speed, so you are not getting some cheap junk. Speaking of cheap, though, you can buy with confidence, I should say, as RPM Tesla offers free returns, no restocking fees, and lifetime warranties. They feature over 500 DIY installation videos to make installation quick. Many companies sell lower quality products and charge a 25% restocking fee if you don't like something. RPM doesn't do that. They only sell the highest quality accessories, over 1,500 of them since 2013. They're family owned, located in Southern California. Check them out at rpmtesla.com and use the promo code RTL10+, like the symbol plus, RTL10+, for 10% extra off of your next order. Yes, 10% extra combined with their current discounted sales prices. This is an exclusive promotion only right here on RTL, rpmtesla.com. Check them out. Meanwhile, as I called them last week and probably every now and again because it's pretty accurate, the Amazon of Tesla accessories, Abstract Ocean, they've got so much great stuff. Just a ton of great stuff. Let's take a look. You know what? In the spirit of S and X being discontinued, let's see what Model S stuff they've got. If I click on Model S all years, they've got their ultra premium tempered glass screen protector, $20. That is on sale, $20. They've got their Tesla logo puddle lights, $50 for a pair. That's really nice. They have got, let's see here, a center wheel cap kit. If you want to pull your aero inserts out of your Model S or Model X wheels, they've got a center wheel cap kit for you. They've got a Mega Bright LED premium puddle light pair. Let's see here. Gosh, all-in-one screen cleaner. They've got, wireless game controller for $25 if you like gaming in your S or X. Just so much cool stuff for SX, for 3Y, Cybertruck, Rivian, etc. Check them out, abstractocean.com. Put everything you like into your online shopping cart, and for a 15% discount off of your first order, use the coupon code RTL Podcast, all one word, no spaces, RTL Podcast at checkout. The Snap Plate and Snap Plate Plus, available for all the Teslas and plenty of other EVs as well, is available at everyamp.com/RTL, and use the coupon code RTL for a discount. This is the front license plate bracket that I very much recommend rather than the one Tesla gives you. This one is a nice, clean, minimalist design. You can barely tell it's there. It's just basically like your front plate's practically floating. It doesn't interfere with the front bumper camera, with any parking sensors or anything else. It's just a nice, clean, really well put together license plate bracket for the front of your vehicle if you either want one or are legally required to have one. Both are made from recycled, made in the USA plastics with stainless steel reinforcements. So check them out. Again, everyamp.com/RTL, or click the link in the episode description. And for a discount, use the coupon code RTL at checkout. Immaculate Reflections is my awesome detailer here in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. So if you're here or gonna be here with a car that you love, make an appointment ahead of time with Immaculate Reflections for either paint correction, get that paint finish looking as good as it possibly can, better than factory new. Maybe you want to do ceramic coating because you don't want to have to wax the car for the next 5 to 7 years, because that's how long the ceramic coating is going to last. Maybe you want to do paint protection film on some of the car, on most of the car, or even on, like me, all of the car. I'm a big fan of PPF. It has saved my bacon, meaning my paint. It saved my paint a number of times, and I do mean a number of times. So yeah, I'm a believer in that. Anyway, professional detailing at Immaculate Reflections. I guarantee when you pick up your car after whatever service you have done, you will be very happy. I promise you that. And there's a Ride the Lightning discount available for all of you listening to this. So when you reach out through the website, which is irdetailing.com, you'll see a couple of different spots where you can click contact in either the upper left corner or even right in the middle of the homepage. Reach out. You can talk to Jeff, the owner there, about what you want to do with your car, and he'll work with you on that. And then just make sure to mention that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and he'll give you the discount on whatever work you end up having done. Finally, my Patreon, I mentioned it earlier, patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. If you are willing and able to support the podcast, I would be so grateful if you would consider that, because a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of love, research, and effort goes into this thing every week. And in fact, this week, like I said, I put my accelerator to the floor yesterday, Wednesday, the day of the earnings call, got all my notes together, and I thought, you know what? I am just dying to talk about this S and X thing. I'm just going to do the podcast a day early so that the lovely Patreon backers can get that early ad-free access to it and hear it one day earlier than they normally would, and hear it 3 days earlier in this case than when it goes wide for the folks not with me on Patreon. So patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. All the different support tiers are there. All the information's there. If you'd like to go check it out and maybe even see it in your heart to join in at one of those Patreon pledge tiers. We've been having a great discussion about all this S and X stuff in the Patreon open discussion channel. There's kind of a Discord-like page on there where people can post comments about everything that's going on, which you know what's going on this week, and we've had a lively conversation in there. So anyway, join me on Patreon if you are willing and able to do so. Finally, make sure to follow this podcast on any of the major podcast services. It's free to do so. Search Ride the Lightning Tesla, and as soon as you see my typical thumbnail, my logo there come up, just click follow, and you're done. That means you'll get a push notification anytime there's a new episode, which for me is every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. Of course, again, those Patreon folks get it early. And finally, this week, a big thanks goes out to my top-tier Patreon backers who, among a number of other perks, as a thank you for their generosity on Patreon to support what I'm doing here with Ride the Lightning, they get their names shouted out at the end of each week's show. So here we go with that. I'll start with the Roadster in Space tier backers. They are Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Carol Weston, Robert from near Philly, American Home Contractors, Doug Carey, Michael Gallo, and Tony Figueroa. Next up, the Maximum Plaid backers, and by the way, as I release this episode here on February 1st, the next Patreon Zoom Hangout, which is for the top tier backers, as well as a one-time courtesy invite to anybody that makes a new pledge or upgrades their existing pledge. So the February Patreon Zoom Hangout will be happening this coming Saturday, February 7th. I'll be sending out calendar invites and emails about that. But anyway, the Maximum Plaid crew, they get invited every single month, and we always have a great conversation. It'll be extra spicy this month. I can't wait for that. I can't wait to talk to all those folks about what's going on with Tesla, with the autopilot discontinued and the S and X discontinued. It'll be a good conversation this month for sure. Thank you to the Maximum Plaid backers, Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Will Stedman, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Chris Osborne, KB, Adam Lavoie, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Dustin Hart, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, Damon Klein, Jeff Brown, Jerry Slinger, Kenneth Corbett, Brian Bertoglio, Kim Bay, Troy Sievers, Chip Hooper, Matt Chinander, Robert Moran, Rav, Christopher Mann, Michael Williams, and Eric Harbert. And finally, the grandfathered-in Plaid level supporters. Huge continued thanks to George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, not Elon Musk in quotes, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. And that, my friends, will wrap it up for an extremely long episode 548. The earnings call episodes typically are a bit longer, and this one, well, like I said, at least I apologized up front, knowing that I was going to talk for a long time from the heart about Model S and Model X and the shocking discontinuation of those vehicles. But I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I had a lot of fun putting it together, and I look forward to your phone calls next week. Again, I'm expecting some reactions. So should be a good episode next week. I hope. I will do my best, as I always do. Happy electric motoring, and I'll see you back here next week.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.